explain to you our approach in how we are developing these kinds of documents. You're used to seeing this one, the one with the 3 red boxes and the goals that we give every year for presidential goals. And this was based on the former strategic plan. We are moving from one plan to another, and that gives us an opportunity, if you will, to take a look at our goals and our measures. So we stepped back and collected all of our major projects, priorities, and measures, and took a look at them. And this was led by Kim Brown, Dr. Dottie Manier, our head of institutional effectiveness, and Dr. Brown, chief of staff. And we are currently providing these to you as part of the presidential evaluation. The updates. Some of these updates are reported to you as movement on key performance indicators. Some are reported to the Board of Governors in our work plan and our annual report. All of those things we have to do already. And in addition, we already have to report information to the National Center for Educational Statistics, known as IPEDS, IPEDS. Of course, when they began to drill down into all of this data, some of it required the same data, like enrollment. But of course, the definitions were different. Some measure enrollment on the first day of classes. Some measure enrollment after a drop in ad period. Some measure enrollment after midterms on October the 15th. Some measure after the 2-week window for deletion for non-payment. So what would appear to be the simple number of how many students do you have enrolled has many definitions. We found this common problem of conflicting definitions over and over and over again. So we compiled all of this into one document with all the different definitions and all the things we have to report to you, the Board of Governors, the state, the national education. And we tried to standardize, I used the we very editorially, try to align these with our strategic plan, priorities, and goals. And they did. It took a ream of paper because they weren't standardized. Everything was unique. So it was a terribly thick document. And they gave it to me, showed it to me, and I, of course, said this won't do, and they knew that. And so they've been working on the alignment of definitions, the alignment of KPIs, the alignment of our strategic plan, what everybody wants from us, to try to work from the same definition. And another aspect of this is our accrediting body, SACS. We are coming up for reaffirmation for our accreditation in 2015. And it would really be nice if the data we gathered for you, for the state, for the federal government, for the Board of Governors, all had the same definition as SACS. So those are the kinds of things that we are we're working on. In the last 2 years, you have been used to seeing a lot of numbers, and that's fine. But I want to remind you that we were at the end of a strategic plan, and we understood it. We had our goals and priorities and progress ready to monitor, and we're monitoring it. Now, at the beginning of a new strategic plan, we only have some. And so what you see in both of these charts, the big one and the one pager, is just the beginning of how we are going to measure our progress towards these goals. And on your screens, you see what's in red is what our ideas are for how we are going to meet the goals. For example, just take 4.1 where it says, 4.1 and 4.2. It will staff hires, staff turnover. This is under sustainable institutional excellence. Do divisions have plans? Do they have, how are they implementing the campus master plan? Those sound general, and indeed they are, but there will be yes and no's. There will be numbers involved, and as we go through this year and finalize it. We are going to continue more detailed planning, more making more metrics, and figuring out how to best institute this new strategic plan. I assure you that there will be more metrics this time next year and as the year goes by. Although we have to have the appropriate discussions, the appropriate alignments, we have to make sure SACS is on board with our definitions. We need to make sure that, for example, when you look up our enrollment in one source, it'll say one number. When you look up our enrollment on our homepage, it says another one. When you look it up at the Board of Governors, it'll say another number. We've got to get on the same page, and it's not easy. It's complicated. So I'm happy to walk through any of these measures that you have before you today, but this is where we are, and we are making more progress. This is a 5-year plan, and we've just started. It is 6 weeks, no, it's September. It's 2 months old. Dottie, Dr. Barnier, do you have any other comments you would like to enlighten the trustees with on this process? Or Kim, Dr. Brown?
Not at this time, but I'm available for questions.
Okay. Do any of you have any questions on this? All right. It will be more numerical. We are getting there, but our approach is to deal with them one at a time and to figure out, to standardize and then align and standardize, and make them more numerical. So thank you. That's what I had to say about that.
Thank you, President Benz. Rather than go into a lot of detail and discussion about the metrics, what I'd like to do is to charge an ad hoc committee with the responsibility of taking a look at this and coming back to us, and they should meet somewhere between now and December and come back to us at the December meeting with their recommendations. And on that committee, I'd like to appoint Bentina, Terry, Mort O'Sullivan, Jay Patel, and myself, and I'd like to ask Mort O'Sullivan to serve as the chair.
Glad to do it.
Thank you, sir. I'm reminded by this little brain that works sometimes that we need a motion to delegate the chairman with the ability to summarize and submit the annual evaluation of our president to the Florida Board of Governors. Could I have a motion to that effect? Second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Next is discussion about our president's compensation.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a request?
You may.
I would like to just exit the room. I know I have the right to stay, and I just would feel more comfortable, and I think you all would too, talking about my compensation. So I'm going to leave the room and send somebody to fetch me. I'll be over in the coffee shop, of course.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. We have, with the president's evaluation, compensation, there are a couple of items that we can discuss, that I'd like to discuss. One is under our rules, the board can give up to a 15% bonus based on the base salary. You've all been provided with the information for different levels, 5, 10, and 15%, what that would mean. Now, we have a restriction of $50,000 that we can deal with. If for some reason we ever went over $50,000, we'd have to go back to as our good chairman calls him, Mr. Marinaro, Dr. Marinaro, for approval. But anyhow, that remains to be seen whether we need that or not. But with in mind that the base salary is at $280,000, and that was after a 2% across the board increase given to all faculty and staff. I'd like to open the floor for discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Chuck Horner here. Just to frame the discussion, I think that certainly Judy has earned every consideration with her performance. I think that we ought to make a salary increase rather than a bonus because it's time to do that. We've not done that in the past. And I think that really it's up to the board in open discussion to figure out how much the amount should be. I could go all the way to 15%, and I agree with that, but I leave that up to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to introduce the idea of a consideration of an adjustment to the base salary in addition to consideration of a bonus.
All right. Do you want to take that further?
When I look at the information that we've been supplied in Judy's evaluation, I think her overall score was a very fine score. One of the evaluation comments talked about a couple of the goals she was charged with are somewhat beyond her control, so I can understand why she might not have gotten a 5.0 on every score, but she did an outstanding job, and I'm thinking that she should be considered for a bonus. On the base pay question, when you look at the survey of where we are in the state of Florida relative to our peers, we have made good progress in adjusting the base pay for Judy since she first took the job, but where she started was so much lower than all of our peers that if you look today, with the exception of New College, which I remember when my son went there, had a student body of 400 students, probably still well less than 1,000. With the exception of that one university, what I see in the total comp figures is that we still are a good bit behind where her peers are in our state system in base pay. So I would like to throw out for consideration a $20,000 adjustment in her base compensation, together with knowing that there's a potential of $50,000 in bonus for her, that it be recommended at a $40,000 level for this year. Those are my comments and thoughts.
Other conversation or discussion?
Just a question for Mort. Was that 20 and 40 for a total of 60 over the fiscal year?
It's an adjustment in base comp of $20,000. Her current base comp, if I can find that information, I want to look at one other sheet. It was 275. It was, I think, just increased in the last month or two by the 2% raise that was applied to everybody. Fault me for liking round numbers as an accountant. I would put the 20 on the 275 and replace the 2% raise with a $20,000 raise instead.
So to 295.
That's the base.
Right.
And then a $40,000 bonus for this past year.
And I guess that's the essence of my question. How does that fit within the 50,000?
That would go over the 50,000, and we'd have to ask Dr. Morero to take that back, or to come back to us with a solution to that.
Well, the $50,000 threshold takes into account fringe averaging 32 to 33% of a full increase. So the net dollars available is 74,000 within the allocation that was previous for the previous president, Kavanaugh. So we have to go back and crunch numbers based on a bonus versus recurring, see how we are.
Yes.
Excuse you, Jim.
then we would have to go back to the foundation board to seek their advice on from where those additional funds would.
Okay, but the total compensation package, your piece of that would be limited to $74,000, which would
Total.
include
Fringe, everything.
base, bonus, and
Associated.
any associated costs.
Correct.
Any further discussion about that?
All right, so if we were to take Moore's proposal, then we couldn't act on this today. Is that correct?
No, we can act on it today. We can approve it contingent to it fitting into the funds that are available. If in fact it is less than what is or more than what is available, then I would hope the motion would say that we would give up to that amount, and after Dr. Marrero ran the numbers, if in fact we went over, then that part he'd have to go back to his board, get approval, and it would become, that part of it would become effective after his board approved it.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we consider making the motion in a specific enough way that allows the flexibility that it can just be concluded with the action of the foundation, and perhaps would say, I really look at the base pay and how much lower it is than comparable peers in the state, and if we had to adjust, I would lower the bonus to fit within the allowed limits, but do the base of 20 and the 40 in bonus if possible, but adjust that if there's a constriction.
Let me suggest that the bonus is due upon the approval by the board. So we actually could pay her bonus this afternoon if the board approves the bonus this morning.
Correct. The Board of Trustees can dictate that the foundation board seek and identify funds available for whatever salary or bonus compensation they deem fit for the president of the University of West Florida. It is then up to the foundation board to identify those funds. Now, there'll be robust discussion, I'm sure, because if we go beyond the amount available, it will be, where is that coming from exactly? But it is our duty, in essence, in the foundation, then to serve at the request of the Board of Trustees to find appropriate funds.
Mr. Chairman?
Above and beyond the $200,000 that the state allows as capped for salary.
Chairman Horner.
I'm sure Mort's got good reasons for dividing it between a bonus and base pay. There's some other considerations. One is that any increase is easily justified in light of the base, the amount of compensation that the other presidents are getting, and given her performance record. Also, it's also justified in terms of what we paid Kavanaugh. It also has future implications when we go out and look for her replacement. So while I don't have heartburn with any particular proposal, I do think that more of the money should go into her base pay than into a bonus. And the bonus, I'm not really think is appropriate this time.
Thank you, sir. Other discussion?
Let me ask you, the state limits salaries of presidents to $200,000. Is that the right figure?
That's correct.
That is
So everything that's paid above $200,000 has to be paid from other sources, for example, foundation. And that's all the payment. That's not only the salary, that's the Social Security, that's all the, and you figure those other costs at 34%?
Yeah, Susan, as Chief Budget Officer, can answer some of the other aspects of that. Trustee Jones.
Dr. Stevenson.
The state does pay on the $200,000 portion, the Social Security and those kinds of fringe benefits, the retirement and so forth. So on that portion, the state does pay those related fringe benefits. The additional funds and the additional deferred compensation that are in the contract are borne by the foundation and the fringe benefits that are associated with that portion.
So her current salary is $280,500. So if you raise it $20,000, it would be $300,500.
That is
Okay.
correct.
And you would be asked to pay the $100,500 and the fringe costs associated with that amount of salary.
That is
And
correct.
additionally, any bonus that we provided.
That is
All right.
correct.
And so you're at $50,000 now is what's been approved by your foundation board.
It is what is currently in the non-endowed budget, exactly from the earnings of the account that has been a placeholder for the previous president's salary held for this very discussion that we're having, knowing in the future we would be reaching that threshold again.
So if we were to approve a $20,000 salary increase, you would have to calculate the fringes associated with that.
Correct. So the
Yeah.
$50,000 number given was putting that into account and other related expenses associated, knowing we had $74,000 left in that budget line to fulfill whatever obligation the Board of Trustees deemed.
Okay, I'm sorry to belabor this, but I want to be clear. So if we have 74,000, then at 20 plus the fringe benefits plus any bonus, as long as it didn't exceed $74,000.
Plus the change that would be related to the base increase that's related to the deferred compensation section of her
Well,
contract.
that's one of the things that I'm thinking of.
Mhm.
So
I
The-
think
the
we,
gross number is
I don't have any
74,000,
problem with considering this, but I think we need to know the numbers when we're dealing with it rather than just leave it open-ended. I mean, I'd like to know how much it is.
If you can't hear that, 7,200 is the fringe amount on the $20,000 suggested adjustment in the base.
And then there's the 12% additional for the deferred comp clause. So 12% of 20 also in addition to that.
Isn't there some point where the fringe decreases? Because after you're over a set salary, then it's only like 3 point.
I think we're beyond that on this portion
Yeah,
because
but
she's
that
long
just
ago
seems-
hit that on the
yeah,
200 paid
it-
by the university.
Exactly. The fringe just seemed high.
That may be overstated.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That seems high.
As
It's-
we're
Right.
getting into these specifics, just to clarify more, I think you indicated you would want to go to 295.
So
So
that's not a $20,000
so it's only a
increase.
$15,000 increase. Is that
It's only a $15,000 increase. That's correct.
And that represents.
roughly 30% of that would be another 4,500. So the 20 could be a good number, including fringes. Is that?
Sounds like it. Yeah.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Would anybody like to propose a motion?
Well, I'd like to propose a motion that she'd be paid whatever amount is available in her base pay,
All right.
in her total compensation, rather than a bonus.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Hearing no second, the motion dies. Is there any other motion?
I would like to move that the base pay be adjusted up to $295,000 and that a bonus of $40,000 be awarded.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion of the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, I forgot to add that the bonus be contingent upon available funds from the foundation, and if there is a restriction that it come from the bonus.
Or why don't you just make the bonus the same, the amount of whatever's left in the, what's already in reserve?
Because I'd like to have her considered for a $40,000 bonus if the foundation has the ability to adjust.
Further discussion?
Question? What is the effective date of this? You talked about earlier the 2% adjustment that you had previously gotten. So is your effective date for your base salary adjustment go back to that 2% date? Or is it today? Or is it when they approve it? And then I have another question.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to clarify.
Thank you for clarifying. I would like, and I suppose we'll need another second, but I'd like to amend the motion to say that on the date we adjusted the 2%, that retroactive, it instead be a $20,000 adjustment, because I think that's just in recent weeks. Did that happen?
Now, Susan, can you clarify, the 2% was back in?
The 2% was effective April 1st. So it's been in effect for a little while. And I'm not sure whether legal counsel might need to speak to when the effective date, because I think it's actually in contract when that can be.
Why would it be appropriate to go back rather than go forward?
I think you're right. If I could suggest a cleanup, that she be put on a $20,000 $295 adjusted number as her base, as opposed to the $280 number that has been her base since April. That it simply be changed to $295 effective now, and just go forward at the higher rate.
All right. Can anybody restate that motion?
I will try. I would like to move that we adjust the base pay effective today from the approximate $280,500 number that's been in effect since April, and that it be changed today to $295,000 starting with the next pay period on an annualized basis, and that we award a bonus of $40,000, and if the combination of this recommendation exceeds what's available from the foundation, that the bonus be adjusted to fit within the framework.
Do you accept that? Do you accept
I would
that
second the
amendment?
motion as amended.
All right. Further discussion?
Question, because I don't understand the foundation thing, and I apologize for that. Does that then leave the size of her bonus or the amount of her bonus contingent upon, poor word, ambition of the foundation?
Would you
if
pull
it's-
that microphone closer to Garrett?
Does that then leave the amount of her, I'm just asking a question, not advocating one way or the other. Does that then leave the amount of her bonus contingent upon, and again, a poor word, the ambition of the foundation to try to find a few extra dollars that they're close to the
To the extent that the salary adjustment plus the recommended bonus exceeds what was the allowed amount, that if that's not adjusted at the foundation level, which says yes to your question, it's in the hands of the foundation. If that is not a possibility, then the bonus be adjusted downward to fit within the framework.
Which right now is $74,000, including the salary increase, the base
Again,
increase.
I'm missing something here. Just tell me I'm a rookie.
That's what
and shut up, okay?
Speak into please speak.
I'm missing something here. If there's $74,000 available from the foundation, he just talked about a $20,000 adjustment in base and a $40,000 bonus. That's $60,000.
Fringe.
But there's fringe that has to be
So
calculated
for
into that.
costs. Is that the difference? Am I conceptually correct? We got 60 versus 60 plus extras
Yes,
versus 75 or 74?
Correct.
That's what
74.
we're playing. Maybe it's more clearly stated that the motion say that we make her base pay $295,000 effective immediately, and we approve a bonus of the lesser of $40,000 or the remaining amount approved by the foundation.
The greater.
I would still second that as stated. And Trustee Walton, I'll address your point. As I'm the liaison, I'm also on the foundation board. And the quick answer to your question is yes, that they could limit that. But the foundation board respects the authority and the wishes of the trustees. to make this decision. And as Dr. Marrero said, there will be a robust discussion, but it will be done with the spirit of trying to find the money and solve the problem.
For the record, I think just because I can foresee future discussion of this item pending its approval, the foundation funds that are utilized for dollars above and beyond the 200,000 state cap are from the investment earnings on non-endowed gifts. These include department, program accounts, unrestricted dollars, and spending accounts. The non-endowed gifts on average have about a 4% return. In other words, all the unspent dollars that are in different accounts across the entirety of all the foundation accounts have earnings. Those earnings are pooled and they're utilized in this non-endowed budget account that then supplies dollars for this type of endeavor. So it is not direct donor dollars that are being used for the presidential salary. I just wanted to make that very clear.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those opposed say aye. Those opposed say no. No no's? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Could we call President Benz back in? I think all of you have just given a trustee evaluation news release that will go out following this meeting. We look forward to hearing the report from our committee at the December meeting. Mort, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda is the honorary awards and recognition procedures from Dr. Jane and Dr. Marrero.
Yeah, join me, Kyle.
You want me to go up there?
Please.
Okay.
While Kyle comes, let me say I didn't realize when I brought forward the nomination for P.J. O'Rourke that I was going to turn up a stone to find a process that was both untidy and dormant, which is an interesting combination. Kyle and I have been working with the Honorary Awards and Recognition Committee to try to figure out why we've been so sluggish in presenting awards, because it's such a great opportunity to try to get recognition for the university and to build friends and potentially to build funds as well. So we met with the HARC, as we call them, over the summer and developed what I think is now a defensible protocol that will help us engender a bigger pool of applicants. And in the process, we were able to clear up some challenges that we experienced. That included, among other things, that we had, around the time of the last big anniversary celebration, we had established a founder's medal, designed it, and then never bestowed it, which is an interesting problem. As well, before P.J. O'Rourke's agreement to serve in the capacity for the honorary degree at the last graduation, our last recognition for honorary degrees took place maybe 5 years before that, and the records indicated that the HARC had not met since 2007. So that clearly was a problem. I don't know if you want to add to the mix about the kinds of range of discussion we had with the HARC. I mean, it was an interesting group this summer.
It was. It's obviously, as you can guess, a lively group of faculty representation. And what it dealt with mostly is really designing a protocol that is clear and transparent, one that offers opportunity for friend and fundraising, and also, more importantly, for the distinguished honor of an honorary degree, but then provide other opportunities for degree awards, for awards bestowed not only as a Presidential Medal of Honor, which is one of our new ones, but then reinstating the Founder's Medallion so that we would have a cadre of offerings in order to really reinvigorate the process and ensure that not only at commencement, but in other opportunities, we'd be able to honor people within the institution and external within our community.
And so the key distinction between those three is that honorary degrees tend to reflect people who have made major contributions culturally or who have been particularly important in the life of the university. and they typically have to have an endorsement of an academic department, and so we built that into the new protocol. The Founders Medal we consider something that is more internal, and what guided our conversation, once we identified in the HARC, we think we've got the first nominee for that award. We're thinking about the timing of it, but we think it may be possible that the very next information you'll get from the HARC will be a nomination for the first Founders Medal for someone who's been instrumental in building the life of the university as an internal person. The Presidential Medal then becomes something that gives the president a lot more latitude to recognize people who've made a difference in the economic life of the Panhandle. It would be helpful if they've also contributed to the university. It's no longer quite as essential, but we believe that that helps delineate which category people might be nominated for. In addition, we committed the committee to clarifying if there is a drift from a nomination for a particular award, and the committee believes perhaps the Presidential Medal is more suited, that they'll have to return a written response to the nominator to let them know what had happened. In any case, we're feeling much more like this paradigm shift, as one of our members suggested. We're moving from having the HARC be a passive group to an active group that will be much more vigilant about having nominations come forward in those three categories.
So what you have before you is a revised policy, basically, for the Honorary Awards Recognition Committee and our processes, reinstating the Founders Medallion within that, and the new award, the Presidential Medal of Honor, its criteria for all of its process, and the awarding procedures. And then you also have a revised charter in front of you to approve that has been approved by the Governance Committee, the Faculty Senate, and the Faculty Senate just last Friday. And if those are both approved by you today, we can move forward. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I do have one question. The presentation of those awards will be given at a graduation or during some other time?
We've left that open. We've said naturally commencement provides the greatest opportunity, but other places that are appropriate to the individual, depending on what area of service within the community they may have done that service. So we are open to the idea of doing it on location or at other events that deem appropriate specific to that person being honored.
And I would just add the exception to that would probably be the honorary degree, which typically does happen at commencement and may or may not attach to it service as the graduation speaker, because we want to make sure graduation speeches are memorable, and sometimes distinguished or honorary award candidates may not be able to deliver the goods in the way that we want. So that's an option that the committee will make a recommendation about.
Mr. Chairman?
I hadn't intended that to be funny, but there you go.
Trustee Jones.
In the committee meeting, we discussed this, and I really think that it's a great thing for us to look at revitalizing, if you will, this process. I expressed the concern that the nomination process was a lot more open than perhaps it had been in the past. And I wonder, I'd just like to get your all's feelings and feelings of the board. What the award of an honorary doctorate degree is a very, very prestigious thing, and is the highest award that this university can bestow. I'm really concerned about the threshold for approval of this degree in this policy is only a majority of the votes of the committee. And I really believe that the threshold should be increased. 2/3 would mean you would have only 6 votes in favor, and 3 could be opposed. 3/4 would mean that it would take a vote of 7 members of the committee approval. I really think the threshold should be increased. I think that the majority vote for the other awards would be fine. But I wanted to feel what your feelings might be on this.
Provost Marker, do you have any insight based on that from previous experience of other institutions?
No, I think this is well taken. I think this point that Trustee Jones raised is well taken. I mean, if you're going to award an honorary degree to a candidate, you want to be I'm hesitating to use the word unanimous, but I would even go that far. You better be pretty unanimous about the worthiness of this candidate, because as Mr. Jones says, this is a high honor indeed that we bestow, and we don't do it lightly.
Agreed. I would say we do have the safeguard of the advocacy and approval of the department of which the specialization of that particular honoree would be, that an honorary doctor would be given. So I would assume that would require a pretty high threshold and endorsement. My only trepidation, Trustee Jones, is, and take it for what it's worth, to get faculty members to all agree on any one thing is always interesting discussion. And so I say that in the spirit of which the dialogue is that we have in the academy. So that can oftentimes be difficult, but I certainly understand the idea and ideal that you're conveying.
And I think one unintended consequence, perhaps, is that it would mean we'd have to go back and revise the charter, because currently the charter addresses the president as non-voting on the committee, except in cases of a tie. And if we move the level up to the one that you're suggesting, that rules out the president's voting in any capacity. So
Well, I would assume that with 9 votes, and the president not being non-voting, that means 10. So it would really only come if you didn't have the full committee there, because otherwise, unless somebody refused to vote, you couldn't have a tie with 9 votes. So if you didn't have the full committee there, then thing. I can see the thing on faculty, except that you have pretty high representation here.
We do.
And you know, if the only thing I guess, if we have to approve the policy, we can amend the policy. But I you know, I don't want to belabor the point, but I really think the threshold should be higher for these.
I don't think the committee itself would find that objectionable at all, if that's useful.
Let me do something, just in the interest of time. What I'd like to do is see if we can get a motion to the floor to approve the procedures as presented, and charge your committee to take a look at Trustee Jones' recommendations and come back to us in December for any action we may need to take in order to amend what we approved today.
Good idea.
Is that pardon me?
Move it. I so move.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify yes.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right. Thank you very much.
The committee thanks you too.
Thank you.
Next item, market rate tuition for the Masters in Education Leadership has been removed from the agenda, and we'll discuss that at some later date. Informational items, I'd like to call on Dr. Stevenson to present the operating budget summary.
Thank you. You have before you and on the screen the year-end report for the fiscal year ending June 30 of 2012. The budget to actual is presented on the first 2 pages, the full budget, all the funds by budget. The second page is for the actual expenditures for the year, and the subsequent pages that follow 3 through 10 present each of the funds individually, budget to actual, for your review. Starting to look at the budget to actuals individually on page 3 is the education and general budget. We received 100% of the general revenue, and lottery funds actually received the lottery funds before the end of the year, so that was nice that they didn't delay that. We were pleased to see that. We collected 105% of our estimated student tuition dollars. So we actually collected $284,000 more than our authority to collect, but we'll be able to manage that in this current year. I want to pause on page 3 for just a minute and kind of give you a review of the year. The E&G budget represents nearly 70% of our funds for operations, so it's important to take a look at it at the end of the year. As planned, total spending for the year exceeded the recurring E&G budget dollars by 3.5%, utilizing some additional carry-forward reserves to make up the difference. 77.4% of our spending was on people, salaried positions, and OPS wages. That's down slightly from the prior year by about $500,000. The OCO expenditures accounted for 1% of our spending in E&G. Now, OCO, you may remember you changed the definition this year, but we define OCO as those one-time purchases of equipment that are over $5,000. So if we purchased something under $5,000, those purchases are reflected in regular expenses. The balance of spending in expenses showed an increase of $3.1 million over the prior year. That's a 17% increase. This is an area where we did do some intentional additional spending. For example, $1 million of our carry-forward dollars were used to pay for a Banner student implementation. We did an additional $800,000 in strategic marketing this year, and we spent some one-time salary savings while we were hiring professors on academic enhancement projects. Also notable, our demonstrated commitment to achieving efficiencies. Institutional utilities were slightly less than the previous year, down $273,000, representing about a 3.89% of our E&G spending. We like to slice the pie another way, besides the natural categories of salary and expense. We like to look at it by functional category, our so-called NACUBO categories. Those are things like how much did we spend on direct instruction and academic support, student services, plant, institutional support, and research. In all of these areas, the institution spent more than we did the previous year. The one lone exception is a slight decrease in the amount of money that was spent on in the public service category. In keeping with the institution's commitment to the core mission, 59.4% of all E&G spending were expended on direct instruction or academic support. That's up from 55% in 2008. Significant change. By functional category, institutional reported the individual largest dollar increase for the year. Again, that goes back to some of the intentional spending that we did on things like Banner Student. So with those discussions about E&G, moving on to page 4, in auxiliary cash, we added $2.3 million in our auxiliary fund. In the fourth quarter alone, we added 6 additional funds, six additional auxiliaries. The other funds are reported on the subsequent pages. One additional highlight would be the technology fund on page 10. President Bentz mentioned early in her remarks the expenditures on making all the classrooms smart classrooms. In total, we collected $1.3 million in revenue for technology fund projects and spent $1 million during the year through the process that we have. 7 systemic awards were awarded and 12 ITEPs, or Instructional Technology Enhancement Projects. Additionally, on the page 11, we look at life-to-date capital projects, as always. The College of Business, as of June 30, was 92% complete, with some additional work to be done on the College of Business Phase 2 project for things like heating and ventilation, those kinds of improvements. We have been reporting to you some conversations back and forth with the state about PICO dollars and cash drawdowns. At our last report, they were starting to limit the cash drawdowns that we were allowed to ask for. Haven't received, our last request of about $24,000. We made that request in July and repeated that request again in August. So there is a little bit of slow payment happening from the PICO funds. We're still on hold for this year's formula funds. We have not yet heard that we are authorized to receive those funds. So we're still kind of waiting for that. So those are a few updates, but overall, the institution is in sound financial health. And with that, Mr. Chair, I conclude my report and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Dr. Stevenson? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd now like to call on Bob Dugan, the Dean of Libraries, for an ebook PowerPoint presentation.
Hi. Dr. Benz asked me to give you an update a bit on what we're doing with ebooks, because we have a little bit more in terms of ebooks than most people know about. And secondly, we have embarked on a pilot project that has some very good results so far that we've been able to update. You've been dealing with a lot of numbers so far today, so let me just paraphrase some of this, and in lieu of time. We have about 150,000 titles in reference and in monographic ebooks. It represents about 18% of our general collection is already in ebook form. This does not include e-journals. Probably about 70% of our collection in journals is in e-format already. So we're at about 150,000 ebooks. The ebooks are used more than folks imagine. Last fiscal year, our 150,000 ebooks were used 165,000 times. So that means that the ebooks are used 1.1 times per volume. On the converse side of that, on our print side, our almost 700,000 print books were used approximately 47,000 times. So that means they're used less than 1/10%. What we're looking at, though, is an issue with the way in which we're developing the collections. And we wanted to get more participation in it. Up to the recent time, up to this pilot project, the library faculty have been responsible for developing the ebook collections. So we've been doing it in groups of collections of thousands of books. We've been buying ebooks related to those that needed to be repaired, those that have been lost, stolen, however, in terms of the print form. And what we're doing is putting in more ebooks related to replicating the current content that's in there. However, there was a lack of participation from students, and certainly from the students that were in our distance education programs. They weren't participating in this at all. What we did was apply for a tech fee grant and put together a pilot project related to what's called a patron-driven acquisition system, the PDA. What we can do at this point is involve students in terms of choosing the ebooks that they need in order to support their curriculum and to their programs. How do we do this? Well, what we did was, and we thanked the committee for the grant, $25,000 in which we are experimenting with this. How this thing works is that the library added 23,000 records into our online catalog of books we do not own. Now, this is an unusual way of doing it. For the most part, our inventory reflects what we actually have on the shelf, what we have access to. What we did is we went out and got 23,000 records of books we do not own, aligned specifically with our curriculum. And we just loaded them in about 6 weeks ago. When students and faculty hit these records, they can then view the full text of the books online. Now, they can do that down there, the other 148,000 books that we have, but these are for books we do not own. If the student or faculty member browsing in this manner hits a book that they want to look at, and they spend more than 10 minutes on that particular book, the automatic buy is triggered. We automatically buy the book seamlessly. So the student doesn't know that all of a sudden we actually own this book. So it's an interesting way of doing this. And we've only been doing this for about 6 weeks. We have already bought 117 books in this manner. Now, these are students that are, and faculty are finding these books online by doing a subject search, doing a title search, whatever. But 117 books have been bought so far. 40% of them are STEM related. 50% are electronic textbooks. Are electronic textbooks. These are textbooks that support their courses directly. So as we look at this, as we start pulling in the synopsis of this whole thing, is that we want to increase in the next couple of years the number of our participatory aspects of students buying these ebooks seamlessly to them. And this particular project looks like it's pretty much successful at this point, even though it's only 6 weeks old. We'll know a little bit more data in the forthcoming months. But this allows the students to be purchasing the books that they find critical. And it's sort of like an electronic bookstore. We often used to go into bookstores and browse the books before we actually bought them. This way here, they're browsing, doing the same manner. They're browsing it. We figured 10 minutes, that's good enough. If they've gone through, they've spent 10 minutes on something, it must be important enough for them to buy. So that's what we're up to in terms of this. We've got a little bit more than half the money left. We expect that we'll run out of money by about December. That's really good news to us. That's the project as a whole. It disperses responsibility for developing the collection outside the students, outside the faculty, and particularly to our distance education students who are not involved in this at all because they're not on campus. I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions?
Well, I thought this was really, Mr. Chairman, if I may, that I had a talk with Mr. Dugan about the future of libraries. Because, I mean, libraries are the heart and soul of a university. They are changing dramatically. And I asked him, will there be any books left in the library 20 years from now? And what's with the ebooks? And how are they being used? And so then when we had the shutdown for Hurricane Isaac, I had some time because Hurricane Isaac didn't hurt us badly. And Bob and I began to talk a little bit about this after something I was reading in the Chronicle, and I thought you might be interested in this. This is very different way to acquire books. It's a very different process than we're used to. I think it is more student-centered, and library faculty used to ask us as faculty, what books do you want us to order? And they made it easier and easier. Just send us the print catalogs we used to get and circle it, Judy. Just circle it and we'll order it. Well, that falls to the bottom of my to-do pile a lot. And I regret it because, anyway, you get it. So this is a very interesting way of doing it. And I hope you heard the number of journals. 70% of our journals are now online. And a lot of the library's budget goes to that. And I don't know if it's 70%, whatever.
85%.
85, wow. Well, that's the most current information that exists in the world today is what's in journals. But at any rate, I think this is very progressive. I like it, and I just wanted you to know that your librarian and your university's library is right out there on the edge of coping and adapting to the new electronic environment. I liken it a little bit to Amazon.com. When you buy something, they show you some things that, because you bought these things, that you might like also to buy, sending you suggestions of things they know you're interested in. It's using that sort of intelligent, artificial intelligence technology that's out there.
And it's also using the students as the bellwether as to what they need, as opposed to the library faculty always saying that or anticipating what they need. What we're looking at is a change in philosophy of just in case to one of just in time, which is why we wanted the simultaneous or the immediate instantaneous purchase of the book seamlessly without them even knowing that they just bought the book or they bought it on our behalf.
I'd like to ask you a question. If in fact it automatically orders the book in 10 minutes, and then it suggests other books that you may enjoy or need or use that are similar, and you find one of those that you prefer, can you cancel the order on the first one?
No.
Okay.
And that's okay, because at a 10-minute threshold, that's a lot longer than most people spend browsing a book anyway, so there's probably some validity to having that book.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about the money.
Yes.
If a student comes up or utilizes an electronic book that we already own, they're just checking it out electronically, downloading it onto a reader, I suppose, of some sort, and there's no charge, just as there would be no charge for a student to check a book out of the library.
Correct.
If they then go look at a book that is not owned by the university, and they stay more than 10 minutes, and it's an automatic purchase, who's the purchaser? Is
Library. Library is the purchaser.
The library is the purchaser. Okay, not the student. Okay. And then today, those purchases are being funded by the $25,000?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
At the conclusion of the grant, will we still have this so that if they're looking at books and they stay more than 10 minutes, there's another automatic purchase?
We like to hope so. What we want to do is be able to reallocate some of our monographs budget to continue this particular pilot project. We wanted to run the pilot first to see whether or not it actually would work. Okay. With 117 titles in a month, I think it works. Yep. It's just a matter, we'll do a little bit more analysis of it. Once the project ends, and we may not be able to put $25,000 to it because our monograph budget is only $22,000 as it is. So what we want to do is put at least $10,000 or so into it so that we're running a balance. I expect that this will become more important as time goes on, so that we would be looking for a reallocation of the monographs budget to a higher percentage related to patron-driven acquisitions than librarian-driven acquisitions.
Last question. In the end, we'll have some sort of financial control so that we don't buy 10 million books. It's on a deposit account. So what we do is we put in the 25,000 and it's drawing down on that. We would do the same thing. Okay. The other thing is that it's on the PowerPoint, but all these titles are reviewed by the library faculty before they're loaded in. So the 23,000 titles were reviewed by us, so that there are materials that we pulled. There were approximately 40,000 records. We pulled thousands of items off there that did not fit with our curriculum. We don't have a veterinarian program, so we pulled all the books out that were related to that particular topic. The topics and the material that are covered in the 23,000, if we had the money, we would buy anyway. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Dugan? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind you today that we're celebrating our 20th anniversary with Northwest Florida Community College, State College. Thank you. And we'll have a short ceremony at 1:30 out here in the foyer, and I encourage all of you to participate in that. Please do take a look at all of the other activities that we have coming up, starting September 27th when President Benz delivers the State of the University address. And if there's no other business to come before this board, we stand adjourned.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
About that.